Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are privileged today that we've had an engagement with the officials and the commissions of the Electoral Commission, and we had issues that we are seeking clarity in regards to the by-elections of KAWEMPE North. So I request the General Secretary to give us a brief of what has transpired. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy President. Today we came here at the Electoral Commission to raise complaints formally. We've been complaining about different issues regarding this by-election and of course the other previous elections. Us in NUP believe in being on record about all the oppression and the persecution that is going on. We talked about the abductions and the violence in this election. Today, our president was supposed to be on the campaign trail, but we took a decision that we will first have this interaction with the Electoral Commission before he goes back into the field because of the violent scenes we saw when he last went there. And we made it very clear to the Electoral Commission that they cannot organize an election where people are battered, people are clobbered. You saw the videos of our supporters, many of whom are still in hospitals as we speak. You saw how Honorable Nalukola was treated on the nomination day. We complained about the abduction of the gentleman who had his nomination forms and all that. And the Electoral Commission said they've also been seeing these things and they raised them with the police when they came in the meeting they had. What we told them, the central demand was that the Electoral Commission should take charge. That was the central demand. That right now, what we see is different people coming in to do whatever they do. JAT is there beating up people, and then the police comes and says those are not part of us, then the military comes and not part of us, and everybody keeps asking themselves who is deploying these people to do these kinds of crimes against our people. We talked about what has been happening in all by-elections, the ballot stuffing, the rigging that takes place in many places. We also talked about the voter register, which we think is inflated. We talked about the fact that from the last election in 2021 up to now, if you see the increment, in 2021 the voters in KAWEMPE North were 164,052 voters, registered voters in KAWEMPE North Division. Right now there are 199,342 registered voters. We complained about that. We said we think that this increment is abnormal, an increment of 21%, which represents 35,000 new voters. And we have seen this happen in other by-elections, including in Busongola, in Oyama and other places, where every time there is a by-election, these NRM people have a way of getting people who are in their books or supporters, picking them from other places so that they do a lot of failing voters. And I think the media covered in Omoro, for example, and Oyam, you people covered how people are being transferred from other districts to come and vote in that particular by-election. So we condemned that very, very strongly and said and requested to look at this register now the way it is. You know, they were talking about the fact that, there was to give you a full picture. You need to have a full register for you to get a full picture of what the register looks like. Because when there's a display and they say, you just see these names of these people, but now we've been able to compute, our electoral management team has been able to compute and realize that these are, the increment is abnormal, and that is something we raised. We talked about the attack on journalists, ladies and gentlemen, and condemned it in the strongest terms possible, and said the journalists are there, to cover what is happening. If the regime does not want journalists to cover their crimes, they should stop committing crimes. You don't beat the messenger. If you know that beating up people is wrong, don't start abducting or arresting journalists and telling them to delete footage, like we've been saying. We've talked about the NUP supporters who are being targeted for putting on our overalls and other uniforms. You've been seeing on the campaign trail that NRM candidate wears an overall, a yellow overall, and all her supporters move in overalls. But when people put on the red overalls, they are picked up, they are brutalized, they are arrested, and so we tasked the Electoral Commission, because it is the overall, it has a mandate of organizing free and fair elections, and we tasked them to liaise with security on this issue so that they tell us Is it illegal now to wear a red, uniform in this country? Is it illegal to wear an overall? Initially they were talking about berets. Now they're even going for overalls and forcing our people to remove them. You remember what happened to Honorable Abdallah Chiwanuka? Honorable Nyeko, when he was picked up, he was also forced to remove the overall he was putting on, and many other people that they pick up and force them to remove this. We've talked about the numberless cars that we've started seeing. The Electoral Commission had made a commitment that will not see those, but people who have been in Kawempe North, you've been seeing the numberless vehicles there, and we've talked about that as well. We've talked about a certain polling station, UCT, which the residents have been complaining is past the quarter guard of the barracks, and they've promised to follow that up and ensure that they give us feedback on that. We have tasked the commission to ensure that our people who as they are being read are not arrested. People have already seen in by-elections when someone tries to record, gets out their phone to record, as they read the results, you know what normally happens. They are arrested, their phones confiscated, and all that. We've talked about the question of pre-ticked ballot papers, and this is a very, very important issue. We asked the commission, where do these ballot papers come from? Because we believe that ballot papers are produced and stored by the Electoral Commission. How come in every by-election we see people with pre-ticked ballot papers? What happens to those people who are arrested with ballot papers? Because in every by-election you have been seeing, you will find someone, whether RDC, in Solo there was an MP who was picked up for pre-ticking ballot papers and all that. So our question was, what happens to those people? In Oyama, you remember there was even a confrontation between Tango Doi and Jimmy Akena, the president of UPC. There are people, because they found people with pre-ticked ballot papers. So the question is, where do these people, the Electoral Commission was saying, we are not the ones. So we say, where do they get these ballot papers? Because you are the ones who produce and store these ballot papers. So where do these people get them from? But also when you pick people with ballot papers, or when we arrest and hand them over to you. Because in many cases, with pre-ticked ballot papers, we hand them over to the Electoral Commission and police, and our question was, what then happens to these people? So, ladies and gentlemen, those are the main issues, but there are others. Of course, there are other issues that we're talking about, largely focusing about the violence, talking about the double standards, because we've asked them, why is it right for the NRM candidate to do a procession and other candidates to do processions? You've been seeing them. Sometimes with when NUP comes in, they say you are not allowed to do procession. So we talked about the double standards as well, which we believe are criminal and wrong and amount actually to electoral offences. Yeah, and what was the response of the commission? Of course, they promised to look into these issues. I wouldn't say that we expect a lot of changes in the conduct of security forces, because even the commission was saying that, we are not the ones who deploy those people. We are not the ones who deploy them. So we may not expect much, but for us as NUP, we believe in putting things on record. So we are happy that yet again we have come and gone on record on these issues. And we are asking the Electoral Commission, very importantly, take charge. Don't say that because we don't deploy those people, for an election to be described as free and fair, all actors are involved. So if the Electoral Commission says we are not the ones who deploy the military and therefore we don't know how they come in, so who should we run to if the military comes and starts beating up people? And then the EC says, those are individuals who we do not deploy, so who has control over them? So anyway, ultimately, they, like they always said that they will ensure that the different organs of state to ensure that the election is free and fair, and the verdict is out there. All Ugandans will be watching to see how this by-election goes. Thank you very much. Basawo ne banyabo olunaku olwaleero tubadde wano nga tuze okusinkana abakulira akakiiko k'ebyokulonda, si kuba nti tubalinamu obwesige bungi obwesigwa, naye ffe nga bulijjo bwe tukola enkola yaffe tuba twagala kubeera ku record. Tetwagala enkya bagambe nti bino ebizibu ebyatuukawo mwakolawo ki. Ffe tuba twagala bano abavunaanyizibwa ku nsonga bategeere obutali bumativu bwaffe, era bituze twogerako. Twogedde ku nsonga y'ekiwamba abantu ekizeemu, abawagizi baffe mukalulu kano nga batandikira bawamba omukulu Serubiri eyalina forms zonna za nomination za candidate waffe. Twogedde ku nsonga yekiwamba abantu okuwamba abantu baffe abakola mu EMC ne bababuuza ebyobufuzi. So si kubanga abasiemayi baba bakuta omuntu lwaki bamubuuza lwaki muwadde kaadi ono lwaki temugiwadde oli, lwaki mukola bwe muti, lwaki President Kyagulanyi yakwesiga gwe nakuwa okukulira akakiiko bwe bityo. Ebyo ne tubuuza ab'ebyokwerinda baba bibakwatirako wa. Twayogedde ku nsonga ya obululu obukonge obujjanga mu by-elections zonna muze mukiraba. Omolo kyaliyo, Oyamu kyaliyo, Edokolo kyaliyo, wonna era mu Kayunga n'awalala. Era ensonga ye Kayunga yazze nnyo okubanga tubuuza Chairperson wa Electoral Commission results zebalangirira e Kayunga bazijjawa. Era tubadde ensonga ebadde nkulu nnyo nga DRA forms zaffe zonna tukyazirina eziraga nti twawangula n'obuli obusukka mu mutwalo mu kitundu naye ne balangirira owa NRM. So ne tubagamba tetwagala kuddamu kulaba embeera eyo mu Kawempe kubanga nabo bennyini bakimanyi bulungi kyabaswaza nnyo kye bakola e Kayunga. Naye tubabuuziza zino predict ballot papers oba obukonge oba butikingiddwa tubulabye mu by-elections zonna. Question yaffe buno obukonge buvaayo babufuna batya? Kubanga tusuubira nti Electoral Commission ye first of all yebukola ate yebutereka. Kakati lwaki buli kalulu tulaba ng'abantu ebya Oyamu abiraba owa NRM yatuuka n'okulwana wa UPC nga balwanira ki abantu abaleeta obukonge nga buli naye ne tubabuuza n'ekirala bano abantu bwe mubakwata mubatwalawa kubanga tetunalabayo omusango ogugenda mu kooti ne gwozesebwa ku nsonga eyo. Buli by-election bakwata abantu abalina obululu butiikinde babatwalawa ye abaayo obululu bwo bulagawa. Era tubuuza ne ku nsonga y'ekisolo oyo MP ne batugamba nti abaali bacomplaininga omusango bagugyamu enta naye ffe ne tulowooza nti Electoral Commission yo kenyini yali badde complainant kubanga obululu yabajja ne babuwamba ku presiding officer ate nga returning officer, yes presiding officer polling station ate yo presiding officer nga employee wa Electoral Commission. Lwaki oyo employee yenyini si yabeera complainant guno omusango negenda mu maaso kubanga mwena amawulire mwakiraba ekisolo nti MP abadde n'obukongo butikingiddwa era nasooka nadduka mu ggwanga n'akomawo kati alya butaala. Twayogedde ku nsonga ya uniform z'abantu baffe aba NUP be bagenze bawamba. Twogedde ku fujjo lye bakola ku bamawulire abajja ati n'abalala efujjo lyonna lye badde bakola buli lunaku n'olunaku olwaleero President waffe abadde alina okubeera mu Kawempe omwo naye twasalawo nti olunaku olwaleero tusooke tujje wano tulabe akakiiko k'ebyokulonda kye katugamba ku nsonga zino kubanga olwedde victims tetulina bangi nnyo. Abantu baffe balumiziddwa abalala balina ebisago so tetwagala embeera eyo egende mu maaso. Twogedde ku motoka ezitalina enamba naye ensonga enkulu endala gye twogeddeko ebadde ya register ye Kawempe North. Tubabuuzizza kijja kitya nti mu kulonda okwaggwa twalina abantu emitwalo 16 mu 14 registered voters. Kaakati ku ssaawa zino bali mitwalo 19 etulowooza nti wandiba nga waliwo akazanyo ke bagezaako okuzanya ke twalaba ebusongola n'awalala bwe bagenda ne bakwata abawagizi ba NRM abantu baba mu structure zaabwe ne bateeka mu register just okulaba nga baparticipating mu by-election eyo. Ne tulaba nti 21% ebitundu 21 ku buli 100 okubanga beeyongedde ku register mu bbanga etono bwe lityo. Ne tulowooza nti walibawe ekitali kituufu era tubasabye batuwe register eyo mu bwangu ddala tusobole okujekenneenya tulabe step eddako. Candidate Teso yogerako.
Today I have a specific question because I don't intend to repeat what the Honorable Secretary General has already alluded to. I do associate myself with his submissions. If there is a particular question you would wish me to address, may it be paused. I believe you've been following the process and how they have mismanaged. I mean those armed men among others who have mismanaged our elections. The question, the most important question has been, who is in charge? Commission or armed men? Is it UPDF, Uganda Police Force? Who is supposed to organize and control and manage the elections? That is a very important question. We have posed it. You know, an election is a process. It's not an event. But from the nomination day, when my official agent was abducted, and all the documents necessary for my nomination were confiscated by jet guys moving in drones. And later on, after my nomination, my car was blocked by those motor vehicles belonging to security organs. I was compelled to walk, which I believe is not a crime. And later on, I was battered, beaten, embarrassed. I was subjected to inhuman and degrading treatment, contrary to the provisions of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. And indeed, contrary to the expectations of all those who believe in democracy, rule of law, and human rights. We are wondering why Electoral Commission never came up openly to criticize what happened to me, what happened to NUP members. You remember on our headquarters, when President Kyagulanyi was moving to the constituency, and many of NUP members and supporters were beaten, were tortured, were maimed, sustained wounds, and later on a number of them were arraigned before court, and that can be termed as persecution, not prosecution, since the state has no basis upon which they can prosecute those people. They have already subjected them to inhuman and degrading treatment, but at the same time they are being presented to courts of law with allegations which are unsustainable. There is no probable thing like a probable cause for their arrest. Some of them were beaten terribly. One would be surprised, how can a judicial officer remand somebody like a process to prison when she was supposed to be sent to hospital? A number of victims of that kind of violence were remanded. How can that be? Where is the Electoral Commission all along? Those are the questions. We are aware that at UCTU there is a problem in Kalule zone where voting is supposed to take place in the military barracks. It is terrible. I've said that an election is a process. It's not an event. All factors must be put into consideration. Why are those armed men still being deployed to where we hold our rallies from? Why are they intimidating us? Why? It must be a free and fair election. Basebo ne banyaba abalungi. Olwaleero ndowooza ebigambo abyogedde Secretary General. Ne bw'aba yalina ekibuuzo nga kyo kyanjawulo ng'ayagala nkimerengule, akireete nja kukiddamu, naye mu bufunze ebyayogedde nzikiriziganya naye bulungi nnyo, era sirina nsonga lwaki nkubagana naye mpawa. Tubasisinkanya abakulu ab'akakiiko k'ebyokulonda, era ne tubabuulira nti twewuunya lwaki ebintu ebimu bibadde. Naddala ku nze candidate wa NUP, ku bammemba ba NUP n'abawagizi baffe. Okuviira ddala ku lunaku luli olw'okwewandiisa, lwe twazuukuka ng'ewaka wange waliyo abakwata mmundu, kyokka nga sirina musango gwonna gwali gunvunaaniddwako oba nti nnoonyezebwa, naye abakwata mmundu nga bali ewaka wange. Ne batakoma okwo, ne bakwata omuntu wange gwe nalonda nga ejenti wange, ne batwala ebiwandiiko byonna ebyalina okukozesebwa mu kwewandiisa, naye ne bamubuzaawo. ngayufu ogutali musango kyewuunyisa mu ggwanga lino abakwata mundu bakuno abalina okukuuma eddembe bwe balaba abambadde engoye emmyufu nga ngoye za kibiina nga ne kale ezo zatongozebwa ate ne bajja okulinnyirira eddembe lyaffe kyokka nga abambadde ebya kyenvu bo tebabalaba nga abalina omutawaana fe abambala ebimyufu nga fe abalina obuzibu gye bali kyatandika ddi okubeera nga abakwata mundu bwe balaba ebimyufu balabanga ebibomboola kyatandika ddi abakwata mundu okutandika okuwamba abo abalina ebiwandiiko byabeeteekateeka okulonda muntu wange bamubuzaawo ate bwe yamala okulabika netumaliriza okwewandiisa ngenda okuvaayo ng'emmotoka yange ezibikiddwa ekyannemesa okutambula okuvaawo kubanga emmotoka yali nga bagisibiddeyo ate abagisibiddeyo era be b'amagye n'abapoliisi nga bakozesa emmotoka zaabwe kyampaliriza okutambula kuba aba electoral commission bali tebakyanjagalawo ku kifo ate oluvannyuma nennumbibwa n'abantu bange ne tukubwa bubi nnyo ne mpalulwa ku kolansi ne batukuba embooka ezitagambika ne batuteeka mu drone ekintu ekyewuunyisa ennyo tubibabuuzizza nabo tebalina nsonga naye bakyanoonyereza tubabuulidde ku nteekateeka ey'okulondeseza abantu ku UCTU mu Kalule zone e Kawempe 1 mu barakisi y'amagye ng'ate era awo we wamu ku we baleese abantu ne babawandiisizaawo mu mbeera ey'enkukutu naye bannange endabula ne sekulabula bw'ayagala okwewaŋŋamya ku buyinza bw'abantu ba Kawempe North oveeyo ewamwe mu masoso g'ebyalo kyolw'okuba oweereddwa obusente gye weetabe mu kuvuluga okulonda kw'e Kawempe bwe banaaba aba electoral commission balemeddwa okukola ku nsonga zino nga bannansi b'e Kawempe North bajja kuzeekolerako ekyo tukibasuubiza tubuuziza ab'akakiiko k'ebyokulonda ddala ani ali mu buyinza ku byokulonda bajja ati bano abambala abayisibwa obukookola abantulugunya n'okututuusaako ebikolobero eby'amaanyi bapoliisi ba UPDF aba bulijjo oba akakiiko k'ebyokulonda kakyayinawo ebibuuzo bye tubabuuza era ne tubalaga n'ebyo ebikyamu byonna nga bw'abyogedde Secretary General naye batusuubiza nti ebimu ku byo bagenda kunoonyereza bagenda kutuddamu ekirala nga bagamba nti baakukyusa olwaleero bagenda kutuwa okulonda okw'amazima n'obwenkanya naye mwe temulowooza mbu kyali kikyamu okujjanjabya pulezidenti n'emyaka naye ate obuyinza bw'okulonda akakiiko k'ebyokulonda bo ne butakyusibwa ti omuntu y'omu oyo atavaako ebbanga lyonna ayagala okubeerako ne mu 271 aliba ku ballot paper kyokka nga ate yalonda akakiiko k'ebyokulonda ate akategeka okulonda ate ye mwe yeetabye ekigambo ekyo mwe temulaba nka tekisobola kutuwa bwenkanya ddembe lya buntu lye twandyenyumirizaamu mu byokulonda okulonda okw'amazima n'obwenkanya amagye okubeera nga galinnyirira eddembe lyaffe ne gatuuka n'okuwambanga polling stations gatuuka okulondera bannansi ye baba galimu be bakyabo baani abo batafumintiza ne bawa ebiragiro ebyo ebyekigwawo tulugunye nalukoola ddala otulugunye n'abantu be abatalina yadde akasaale wadde akaggo alina ekibuuzo akimbuuzi.
Yes, I have one question.
Only one question.
Given all those frustrations, what is your message to the supporters in Kawempe North?
Kwebale nnyo ekisookera ddala. In the first place, such evils are committed against us so that they can delay us from doing what is necessary. That is campaigning, soliciting for votes. By this time, but here we are complaining to the Electoral Commission, which has no forthcoming positive answers. All we can say now is to encourage our supporters and voters in Kawempe North constituency to come and vote for us overwhelmingly on the 13th day. We shall protect our victory. We shall protect our vote. Kamuluganda bino ebikolebwa bye mulaba ebyokulinyirira eddembe lyaffe okututulugunya okutunyigiriza bigendereddwamu kutunafuya kutuzza mabega abantu baffe nga babakwata nga babalumya n'ebiringa ebyo naye